This is the Content Marketing Podcast, episode number 161. Jay Baer stops by to chat about his new book, Hug Your Haters. Hello and welcome to the Content Marketing Podcast. This is the show where we help you attract and retain business through the power of quality content. I'm your host, Rachel Parker of Resonance Content Marketing, and today is February 11th, 2016. Hello, or as we say in Texas, howdy, and thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. Just a reminder, we are live on iTunes and on Stitcher, so if you're listening to this episode on the blog, you can click on over and subscribe. And we're also on SoundCloud. I forgot to mention that one. If you use a different app for your podcast listening pleasure, we also have an RSS feed, and I will provide that link in the blog post. I also invite you to download our brand new ebook. It's called Ninja Secrets of B2B Blogging, and you can get your very own free copy at b2bbloggingebook.com, and that's the numeral 2 in B2B, b2bbloggingebook.com. Also, I just glanced at our numbers real quick, and guess what? The Content Marketing Podcast is this close to reaching 100,000 downloads. This close, and I'm holding my fingers really, really close together. We are so close. So just for today, I want to ask you a favor. Now, first, a disclaimer. If you are driving, please wait until you are safely parked to do this. Don't want to have any incidents on the road. So whether you're listening to this podcast on iTunes or on Stitcher or on another app, if you look at the screen, somewhere on that screen will appear a share button, S-H-A-R-E, share button. Now, if you enjoy this podcast and you like the content we share and you're looking forward to today's interview with Jay Baer, I'm going to ask you to tap on that little share button and share the Content Marketing Podcast. Share it on Twitter or on Facebook or on LinkedIn or whatever your social network of choice is. Would you do that for me? I would so appreciate it. I cannot tell you how much I would appreciate it. Now, again, if you're driving, please wait until you are safely parked. Don't want any problems. But please take a moment to share this episode when you are in a safe place. I would so appreciate it. Okay, back to business. Last week, we kicked off our month-long focus on B2B blogging by sharing some reasons why you shouldn't be doing it. If you happen to miss that episode, or if you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about, please feel free to check it out on iTunes or on Stitcher or via the RSS feed. Today, I have a special treat for you. Our friend Jay Baer is back to chat about his latest book and to tell us why it's time to hug your haters. And yes, I said hug your haters, H-A-T-E-R-S. Let's find out what he has to say about that. But first, it's time to check in with our news feed for this week's rundown of news you can use. R.I.P. Twitter? If you have been checking in on news out of the Twitterverse recently, you might have seen that hashtag RIP Twitter floating around. Here's where all that came from. BuzzFeed broke a story that Twitter is considering changing its news feed from real-time to algorithm-based. So currently when you pull up your Twitter news feed, you see the newest tweets on top from those that you follow and then the subsequent tweets afterwards. Well, what Twitter is considering, according to this BuzzFeed article, is doing more of a Facebook kind of thing. So instead of seeing the most recent tweets at the top of your newsfeed, you would see the tweets that Twitter thinks you'll want to see. Now, as you might imagine, this prompted outrage from Twitter lovers all around the world, hence the growing popularity of the hashtag RIP Twitter. People were just foreseeing the end of Twitter completely. Now, the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, has attempted to quell this maelstrom by making some very carefully phrased statements, saying things like Twitter is live, Twitter is real time, which we know it is now, but no word on what they are considering doing as far as the news feed goes. So no official word yet, but here's my take on it. I never I never look at my Twitter newsfeed. I never pull up twitter.com or my Twitter app on my phone and just start scrolling through the newsfeed because I follow thousands of people. And, I have I scroll through a whole lot of stuff that's just garbage and stuff that doesn't interest me in the frame of mind that I'm in at the time. And I don't know any Twitter power users who do that, who just look at their news feed. What we do is we live and die by our lists. So I have my content marketing gurus list, I have my publications lists, I have my clients lists, and that's how I engage with Twitter. I check in on these different lists because it compartmentalizes the experience for me. I want to check in with my content marketing gurus. I can go there, or I've got another list for friends. I can see what they're up to. And that's how most people who are avid Twitter users whom I know use it. Now, if Twitter is just going to be jacking with the news feed that I don't look at, and most power users I know don't look at, I don't see a big deal. I really don't see a big problem. But now, if they start jacking with how my lists are going to show up, then we're going to have a problem. But again, nothing official yet. We do not know if Twitter is officially considering this or if this is just a tempest in a teapot. So that's where we are on the RIP Twitter issue. I invite you to stay tuned, and I will be sure to keep you posted. Okay, speaking of annoying algorithm-based news feeds, we have some news out of Facebook. Yeah, you see what I did there? When someone comments on a post on your Facebook page, you now have the option of responding either with a reply, which would be visible to anyone, or with a private message, which would be something that only the commenter can see. So, under which circumstances would you want to use which one of these options? Stay tuned, because today's guest, Jay Baer, is going to be talking about exactly that. He's going to be talking about responding to those comments on social media, especially comments that might be negative. So as they used to say in the old days, don't touch that dial because your answers are coming right up. Okay, our content hit of the week. This is a good one. It's a post called How 7 Departments That Aren't Marketing Can Use Content. This was written by Aaron Nelson over on the Contently blog. Now, we marketers, we tend to kind of live in a bubble. I mean, let's be honest. We see our work and our tools and our results, and we kind of live in a bubble. And it's easy to start thinking of content as our own private fiefdom. Content equals marketing, marketing equals content, and we've got it handled. Nobody else needs to get involved. But what Erin does in this post is she broadens that perspective, and she really takes a good hard look at how content can help different departments such as sales, human resources, even product development, how it can help those departments achieve their goals as well. And it's a very interesting eye-opener. It's a very good read, and one you might want to share with other people in other departments of your organization. Maybe invite them into the content party as well. So I will provide the link in the blog post for this episode. Okay, that's it for this week's update. If you stumble across something you think might be of interest to your fellow content marketers, please shoot it on over to us so that we can share. Now it's time for this week's Spotlight segment. Jay Baer stops by to tell us about why it's time to hug your haters. Jay Baer is a marketing and customer service expert and the New York Times best-selling author of 5 books. He is president of the global consulting firm Convince and Convert and has advised some of the most iconic organizations in the world, including Nike, Allstate, the United Nations, Oracle, and 32 of the Fortune 500. The most retweeted person in the world among digital marketers, he writes for Inc., Entrepreneur, and Forbes. He also owns the world's #1 content marketing blog and the Top Marketing podcast. He's an avid tequila collector and a certified barbecue judge, and he recommends that you enjoy both while reading his latest book. Now, if you recall, Jay actually joined us a couple of years ago when his last book, Utility, came out, and we are delighted to have him back back again to talk about his newest publication, Hug Your Haters. Without further ado, here's my interview with Jay Baer. Hey, Jay, welcome to the podcast.
Fantastic to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Or I should say welcome back. We were
Indeed.
So happy to have you talking about utility a couple of years ago, and here we are again.
I can't believe it's been that long. It's crazy, right?
I know. Well, first of all, Jay, interesting tidbit. I was just glancing at your LinkedIn profile and noticed that you and I have something in common.
What's that?
Besides the marketing thing, we were both political science majors.
Oh, I didn't realize that you had gone that route as well.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. That was my first career. I actually managed campaigns and all that when I was a young man.
Wow. It's definitely a young man's game, isn't it?
Boy, it certainly is. I got out of it because, this isn't really what I want to do when I have a family. Mm-hmm. This is really crazy. And also back then, this is a long time ago, mm-hmm. Rachel. This is like 20 plus years ago. Mm-hmm. You ran for, you did campaigns, and then when the campaign was over, there wasn't anything to do for a year. So most campaign consultants would lobby in the off years. I didn't really like lobbying very much. I preferred campaigns, and so there wasn't much for me to do in the off years. Now, of course, you're always campaigning. There is no off season. So it's a little different game these days.
Yep, exactly. Well, it's funny because I was watching my latest obsession, House of Cards, a few days ago.
So good.
And I was looking at it thinking, oh my God, how did anyone live in Washington and just live this life? And then it was like, oh, Rachel, that was your dream at one point.
I know. What was I thinking? It was crazy. But young and foolish.
Exactly. So you have a new book coming out, which I'm excited to talk about. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about utility, because you did something very interesting with that book. After you published it, you went back and published utility for real estate and utility for accountants. Yeah. And I'm not sure I've ever seen an author take a best-selling book and customize it for specific verticals like that. So how did that come about, and what kind of reaction did you get?
I completely stole that idea from the guys, Michael Gerber in particular, at eMyth. So he has eMyth for lawyers, eMyth for accountants, eMyth for doctors. And I love the eMyth book. It's a fantastic book and I highly recommend it for anybody who's a small business person. Mm-hmm. And the Chicken Soup guys, same thing, right? Chicken Soup for the, whatever soul. Mm-hmm. That vertical approach can work really well. I did it. Obviously, want to sell books, but I was trying to do it with verticals where I wanted to do more speaking, and so it was really successful. The challenge is the way we kind of had it set up with my publisher. Those books were all ebooks. Mm-hmm. And that's fine and easy to write and things like that. Yeah. But when you're trying to tie those to events, it's kind of kludgy, because you can't really say, let's get an ebook for everybody in the event. You can, but it requires pin codes and downloads, and it's just a little bit weird. So we sort of set it aside in order to write the new book. But we may come back to it. It's certainly not an idea that is no longer valid. I would love to do more utility verticals for restaurants, for attorneys, for lots of different industries, and we may do that yet. But I'll probably do it as an actual kind of soft cover book, that you could actually hand out to people and sign at events and things like that.
Yeah, it doesn't make for a very interesting back of the room table when all you have is like, here's a URL.
Go to this address. Go to Amazon. You're going to love it.
Right, exactly. Well, terrific. And I have to say, Jay, whenever someone is getting started in content marketing and asks me what books they should be reading, that utility is always one of the few that I
very kind of you
that I recommend. Yep, fantastic. So your latest book is called Hug Your Haters. It is due out March 1st, so here in just a couple of weeks. And for those of you tuning in, you can pre-order it at hugyourhaters.com, correct?
Absolutely, and there's all kinds of special bonus content and materials. You can get socks. You can get. I love Hater socks, which are awesome. All kinds of other cool stuff that you can't get anywhere else if you buy it at hugyourhaters.com. Mm-hmm. I will ship it to you for free anywhere in the U.S. or Canada.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk a little bit about the book, and then we'll get into the content marketing connection.
Yeah.
So, what prompted you, first of all, to write what is essentially a customer service book?
Well, it's funny. In our work on the consulting side of my business at Convince and Convert, we work lots of big brands on social media marketing, content marketing, digital marketing, et cetera. And what we kept running into was a collision between marketing and customer service. Mm-hmm. That now we're using the same tools and tactics for both sides, both proactive communication and reactive customer communication. And there was lots of confusion and issues. And the deeper I dug, I'm like, geez, it's 2016. 2016. How do we still not know how customer service should be done? And you combine that with everybody's personal anecdotes, mine, yours, everybody that we know, who have continual tales of terrible customer service. And I thought, geez, there's got to be a better way. How is this not solved yet? And then I realized one of the reasons it's not solved is that we're having this massive shift in how customers want to interact with businesses. We've been fairly lucky in corporate America, corporate global, in that most of the customers have wanted to deal with us via phone and email. For the last 15 or 20 years. And now, of course, we've got to lay social on top of that, and now WhatsApp and WeChat and all these other places. And it has gotten much more difficult, and businesses simply are not prepared to interact with customers every place that customers want to interact with businesses. And so I thought there's probably a book in that, but I'm not entirely certain what that book is. And so what I did that's kind of unusual is, unlike most business books and unlike most customer service books, which are basically driven by anecdote and advice, where a quote-unquote expert thought leader says, this is what I think, trust me, I'm right. I thought, I don't want to do that. And so I partnered with Edison Research. It's a very large, well-respected consumer attitude collection firm, and we did a massive study on the science of complaint. And so we talked to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. This is no like Survey Monkey in a half hour kind of deal. And we looked at who complains and where they complain and why they complain and how. And we discovered that about a third of all customer complaints right now remain unanswered, but almost all of those that are unanswered are online. That, well, there's your problem. So wrote a whole book about the shift between offline and online customer service and what companies need to do to get in front of that curve.
Fantastic. You know, Jay, when I first saw the topic of the book, my gut reaction was like, well, Jay's a marketing guy. What's he doing talking about customer service? But in these days of, so much customer service going online and so much of it's being public, do you think those lines are being essentially blurred between customer service, PR, marketing, customer relations?
100%. In fact, I talk about in the book in multiple places that customer service is the new marketing. It is now the differentiator between businesses, because your competition can steal everything from you, right? They can steal your products. They can steal your content marketing. They can steal your best people. They can poach your customers. They can mimic your prices. They can borrow your website copy. But the one thing your competition can never take from you, they can never steal from you, is yours and yours alone, is if you genuinely care more about your customers than they do, right? They can't take that. And so if you think, if I ask you, Rachel, who's really good at customer service, you can name some people, and everybody listening can name some people. And that is the point, right? The fact that you know who's good at customer service proves that customer service is a differentiator. I envision a world, I hope we get to the place where I say, Rachel, who's good at customer service? And you can't name anybody because everybody's good.
Yeah, speaking of which, you quote an interesting, speaking of research and statistics, you say that 80% of customers, 80% of companies say they deliver superior customer service, and they probably blab about it all over their websites, but only 8% of customers agree. So why the gap?
Whoops, we got a problem. Yeah, that's from a Forrester study that 80% of companies say they're great and 8% of their customers agree. I mean, look, I've been a consultant now for 25 years, and in my entire career, I have never been in a meeting where somebody comes in and says, we're terrible at customer service. Like, nobody ever says that. Everybody thinks they're good because they rely on individual anecdotes. Well, we helped this one person and that was amazing. And they're like, oh yeah, we're great at it. We're fantastic. And meanwhile, they're just really not day to day. And that problem, that gap between companies thinking they're good and consumers thinking they're not, is very much exacerbated now by this shift online, because we treat customers online so differently than we treat them offline. I mean, when you think that so many customer complaints in social media, on Yelp, TripAdvisor, discussion boards, and forums are ignored, and not accidentally ignored. They're willfully ignored. Our policy is we don't answer Yelp reviews. Our policy is we don't answer negative tweets or whatever. This is very common. You would never dream of doing that offline. You would never say, okay, here's the deal. We're going to answer about 55% of the phone calls.
Right.
That's our plan, right? That's our actual plan. Like you wouldn't do that. But now that we've got more and more customers wanting to use online and social media in particular as a way to interact with brands, brands are using yesterday's playbook for tomorrow or for today's reality, and it's a big issue.
Yep, absolutely. So when you talk about these haters, Jay, you specify that there are two different types of haters, and they want different things from you when they complain. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, we actually uncovered that in the research, that there's two main types of complainers, two main types of haters. And they are off-stage haters. And off-stage haters are people who complain in private offline, almost always phone and email. Those off-stage haters are slightly older, slightly less technology savvy. Then you have the on-stage haters, who are the people who complain online and in public. And so they're complaining on social media, on discussion boards, and on all the different review sites out there. And they're a little younger, of course, a little more social media savvy, of course, et cetera. But those demographic differences, when you break them down, are not are not significant. They're you can see them, but it's not vast. The big differences are in expectations, what they expect from business. So when people complain off stage, so phone and email, they want and expect an answer. According to our research, 90% of the people who complain offline want and expect an answer from business. And I'm sure that's true for you as well. If you call somebody and leave a voicemail, you expect them to get back to you. If you email a company, you expect them to get back to you. It's just the social contract, right? It's how business has evolved over the last 2 decades. But if you complain online, you don't necessarily expect or want an answer. What you want, in many cases, is an audience. 47% of the people who complain in social media and related areas expect or anticipate businesses to get back to them. Right. So they don't even expect you to answer. What they want is that kind of tsunami of group empathy. They want all their friends to say on Facebook, "Oh, that totally sucks. I'm so sorry that happened to you." Right. And they want everybody to be like, oh, woe was us, woe was us. Right. That's the effect that you're trying to create. And so what this really is a massive, massive, massive opportunity for business, because people don't expect you to answer. And so when you do, it blows their minds and wins their hearts. In fact, just answering one single customer complaint online can increase customer loyalty by 25%.
Wow, that's powerful.
But we don't do it.
Yeah.
But yet we don't do it.
Yeah. Is it just because businesses are so entrenched in the old ways that they're just
that's some of it. Think about what do we call customer service departments? Call centers.
Call centers, yeah.
Call centers. Well, there's your problem. If everybody wants to interact with you in a place that's not the telephone, even the mentality of calling it a call center is way off base. And think about today's young consumers who are going to be your core customers at some point. I have 2 teenagers at home. My daughter's 17, my son's 14. They have smartphones, of course, but to them, it's ridiculous that it's called a smartphone because they never want to use the phone. Like, you can't make my son talk on the phone at bayonet point. Like, he has no interest at all and barely any interest in email. It's all text and Twitter and Snapchat. And so I refuse to believe at some point they'll be in their very first cubicle, in their very first job, and they'll say, now I've been thinking a little bit, I have missed out on the joys of telephonic communication. I want to totally get back on that train. Like, it's not going to happen, right? So,
right. I will explore this strange box on my desk that seems to make noises.
Yeah, what is this? Yeah. So that's a problem, right? That's a trend problem. But then the other issue is, and I'm not shying away from this. In fact, we acknowledge it a lot in the book, is that to do what I advise, which is the Hug Your Haters formula, is to answer every customer complaint in every channel every time, as opposed to what we actually do, which is to answer some customer complaints in the channels that we prefer when we get around to it. To do that, to actually take the Hug Your Haters formula and put it into practice, requires an application of resources that most businesses simply are not prepared to do. And I hear this all the time. When we come into a consulting engagement and somebody says, hey, what should we do to get better at online customer service? And I say, well, there's some specific things you should do, but it's going to require more resources, more people to do it. Yeah. Well, we don't have those kind of resources, to which I say, well, that's not true. You just choose to not deploy them that way. And we have to stop thinking that we can dictate to the customer how they will communicate to us.
Yep, exactly. So Jay, when a lot of us think about haters, our thoughts immediately go to the troll. And yes, trolls are out there. So how do we handle trolls? How do we handle people who are just looking to start something?
Yeah, it's so true. So there's actually 3 types of haters: off stage, on stage, and I call in the book the crazies, which you call the trolls. And those are people who clearly have a desire to be inflammatory, and they absolutely exist. Now, we talk about them a lot, but I think it's important to recognize that mathematically it is a very small group, like really, really small. We probably pay more attention to them than they merit from a ratio perspective. But my advice is to answer those people as well, unless it's something that's outside legal bounds or personal attacks or things like that. We're like, hey, call your local sheriff. But for your regular troll who is just inflammatory, my advice is to answer them as well, because the more calm and rational you are, the less calm and irrational they seem. And that's totally okay. So I'm not suggesting that every customer is right. That is not the case. But I am suggesting that every customer should be heard. And when you answer everybody, not just people who are nice to you, but when you answer everybody, it sets a value system for the business that everybody can see. Because the key to all of this, Rachel, is that customer service now is a spectator sport.
Yes.
Which is why it becomes marketing, right? If customer service was still playing out in private on telephone and email, there would be no marketing application here at all, and no one would really care. Right. But the fact is, how you handle that troll or how you handle any customer is part of your brand now, because tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people will see that interaction either now in real time or in a review site or discussion board over a period of years. I mean, there's reviews out there that either are leeching away brand value or contributing to brand value, and there are exchanges that happened in 2012. So you've got to set up a universal system that says, look, we're going to address everybody, and then we'll have a specific system for doing that. And that's what we talk about in the book. And there's lots of worksheets and processes and stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. When you talk about responding, I'm immediately thinking of that case. It was what was it called? Amy's.
Oh, yeah, Amy's Bakery.
Years ago.
Phoenix.
Oh, my
gosh. I used to live in Phoenix, so I know a little bit about that. In fact, one of my old friends was their PR firm, which is that was a fun gig. It's like, I don't know what you guys got paid, but I don't think it was enough.
Right, exactly.
Well, even this week, you may have seen the thing a couple of days ago with Elon Musk from Tesla, where somebody, a customer who's a quasi-journalist, wrote a scathing blog post about how Tesla handled a recent launch and kind of called the CEO to account. And so Elon Musk was really unhappy about that. So he called the customer and they kind of argued about it over the phone. And then Musk and Tesla canceled his order. It's like, well, what? If you're going to be this negative, you're not allowed to have a Tesla. And I'm like, that's not how you do it. No. I'm like, guys, the book is almost out. Just 3 weeks from now, we could have saved you all this embarrassment. And as a Tesla owner, I was very disappointed in that exchange. I was like, guys, you got to be better than that. But people take it personally. I mean, that's the challenge, right? And right. I talk about one of my favorite sections of the book is we actually interviewed some psychiatrists and talked about the brain chemistry changes that happen when you're confronted with negative feedback, and it triggers very similar, physiology changes like the fight or flight response. And so you tend to act in a way and say things in a negative feedback exchange that you typically would never say, right? It totally puts you on tilt. And that's why it's really important that you train your first responders to sort of take a breath, understand that it may feel personal, but it's not personal, and then react accordingly, because sometimes businesses dig themselves a much deeper hole by responding. And in those cases, maybe you shouldn't have said anything. It would have been better off.
Yep, exactly. So I'm looking through some of the things that you have to say about the book on the website, Jay, and we talk about one of the things that you talk about is the future of customer service, including specific apps and technologies. And it's funny, whenever I talk about a relatively new subject, people say, "Oh, well, what do I need to download? What's the app for that, or what tools do I need?" So what do you see in terms of the future, in terms of keeping up?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy right now. And I can't wait to write the second edition of this book because it's going to come quick. Yeah. You look at Facebook Messenger, and Facebook is pushing Messenger really hard as a customer service vehicle. I talk a little bit in the book about the fact that I think Facebook is trying to put email out of business eventually with Messenger. And so there's a lot of customer service application there. There's many big companies starting to use Facebook Messenger very aggressively as a customer service channel. Same thing with WhatsApp, which is also coincidentally owned by Facebook. There's now 1 billion users of WhatsApp and many companies using it for customer service. WeChat in Asia is even bigger, and lots of companies using that. I have a great case study about HP and their use of WeChat in Asia for customer service and customer support issues. So you've got all of these different places that customers want to and can interact with businesses. So if you're struggling with answering tweets, just wait for the next wave. You got a real challenge coming.
And speaking of which, I heard an interview that you did a few days ago, and you mentioned that Facebook is now the number one source for people voicing customer complaints. Is that
by far?
Wow.
So that was one of the things that surprised me the most in the entire research study. So if I say, hey, which of the social networks would you think of first if you needed customer service? Twitter. You would say Twitter, of course. Everybody would say Twitter. I would say Twitter. You would say Twitter. Everybody listening would say Twitter. However, when you actually look at the numbers, it's not true at all. 71% of all social media complaints occur on Facebook. Wow. 17% are on Twitter. It's about 5% Instagram, a couple percent on some of the other places, but it's overwhelmingly Facebook. Now, a lot of the Facebook complaints are indirect complaints. It's people griping, not necessarily saying, "Dear brand, please help me." Again, it's the difference between wanting an audience and wanting an answer. But brands who are put so much effort into Twitter customer service would be well served to keep their head up and look a little harder for Facebook mentions as well, because I guarantee you there's a lot more of them.
Yep, absolutely. And Jay, talking about this negative feedback in general, as content marketers, sometimes we get into the fact of having negative comments on our blog, or maybe someone coming back on a social post. So how can we take your customer service approach and adapt it to what we're doing on our blogs, what we're doing on YouTube, et cetera?
Well, look, there's two reasons to hug your haters. One is to try to keep more of your customers. When you answer customer complaints, it increases customer advocacy always. Therefore, if you do that and you apply the hug your haters formula, you should reduce customer churn, make more money. Ta-da. The second reason you should hug your haters, though, is that it is free market research. The most overrated thing in the world, Rachel, is praise.
Right.
Praise is totally overrated. When somebody says, "Rachel, you're so great at this. Rachel, you're so great at that. Rachel, you're amazing at this," it feels awesome, right? You get that sort of mental rush, but it doesn't teach you anything.
Right.
Because in almost every case, whatever somebody says you're great at, you already knew that you're pretty good at that, right? It's not educational at all. Criticism, however, is a great teacher. Negative feedback is where you learn lessons that you can get better, which is why I say your haters are your most important customer. But yet what most businesses do is they say, "Oh, if those guys don't like us, screw them," which is exactly what Tesla did, right? If they don't like us, we don't like them. They're a bad customer, quote unquote. They're not a bad customer. They're going out of their way to use their time to tell you what you can do better.
Right. And this is just walking away, right?
Of course, instead of just disappearing. And this is where the content marketing tie-in is so incredibly important. So if you're trying to figure out what should we create content about, as everybody is, My advice is go spend a day with your customer service team and say, customer service team, what are the things that customers ask about the most? Make a list of the top 50 customer questions or top 50 customer complaints by order of frequency and create content about all 50 of those. That should be your playbook for content creation. Let's use content to prevent customers from having to complain, or use content to educate customers who are otherwise confused. That, to me, is a giant opportunity for all content marketers. And certainly firsthand, I can tell you that we don't see it very often in our practice, where content marketers are sitting with the customer service team almost never.
Interesting. Yeah, when I talk to my clients about finding sources for the content, like, oh, what are we going to write about? I say, spend 1 week with your sales team and 1 week with your customer service team.
Yes.
You will have reams of stuff to talk about.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you're exactly right. And it just doesn't happen very often. They just don't think about. They just don't think about them as being a viable source of content marketing, and they absolutely are.
So can we come up with an example maybe of how a particular customer service issue could evolve into a great piece of content?
So there's a case study that I have in the book about a company called Wink, and Wink is a frozen desserts manufacturer. They create this this kind of non-dairy dessert. It's sold adjacent to ice cream in your local grocer, but it's gluten-free, it's carb-free, it's non-dairy. It's essentially Cool Whip, but really, really, really reduced to nothing. Right? It's like the hippie dessert of all hippie desserts. So. They got a very angry note on their Facebook page from a customer who essentially said, look, I bought this hoping that it would taste like ice cream but be low calorie, and it actually doesn't taste anything like ice cream. It actually tastes really terrible, at least to me. I'm sending this back for a refund. This is ridiculous. You guys suck. And their customer service team, who actually is also their marketing team, said, hey, we're really sorry. It's not ice cream, but we do strive for an ice cream-like experience, which is why it's sold adjacent to ice cream in the grocer. The reason this product even exists is that our CEO, Gabe, has celiac disease, and so he's super gluten intolerant, and so he wanted to create a dessert that he could enjoy that wasn't going to make him sick. And we realize this isn't for everybody, but a lot of people do like it. If you have any trouble returning it to the store for a refund, let us know, and we'll refund your money ourselves, etc. So a really textbook, classic customer service reply, very apologetic, humanized it, educational. But from a content marketing standpoint, it's like, okay, if people think it's ice cream, but it's not, we need some content executions that make that point more clear. Whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on your site, maybe it's shelf talkers that you can have in the store, maybe it's signage. There's a lot of different places you could do that. Also, if the whole play here is that Gabe, the CEO, invented this because he was having trouble digesting gluten and he wanted his own dessert. To me, that's like content marketing magic right there. Like, give me that story and let me milk that story about 37 different ways in the next 6 months in every conceivable content marketing medium, right? Let's have, videos of Gabe, and let's have photo galleries of Gabe, and let's do a slideshare of Gabe, right? And just like completely do that and put that message everywhere so that customers kind of intercept or are intersected by the Gabe story, and then they get to the store and like, oh, Wink equals Gabe, gluten-free, these are our guys, right? And solve some of those it's not ice cream problems with content before the customer puts it in their basket.
Okay. So it wasn't that the product was bad, it's just the person expected to taste like ice cream. Total
expectation problem.
Right.
Completely, and when it's sold right next to ice cream, it's like, well, yeah, I kind of see why you would think that.
Yep, exactly. Great example. And Jay, as I mentioned, I heard your I attended your blab the other day for Social Media Sucks, and you talked about a case where it was a brand that actually not only hugged their haters, but actually turned those haters into secret shoppers and sent them out to other locations.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite stories. It's from Le Pain Quotidien.
That was it, yes.
And they are a chain of bakeries and cafes. They're based in Brussels, but they've got 220 locations, a bunch in the U.S., mostly in the Northeast, New York and Boston and stuff. And There's two really interesting things about them. One, their director of customer experience, Erin Pepper, when she started there probably 2 years ago now, she said, look, my goal as the director of customer experience is to triple the number of complaints. Think about that.
Wow.
Triple the number of complaints. Now, typically, if you're in any sort of customer experience or customer service role, you think your job is to do what?
Reduce complaints.
Reduce complaints.
Eliminate complaints.
Eliminate complaints.
Sure.
You know what's the best way to eliminate complaints?
What's that?
Stop listening for them.
That's true.
I mean, it's so easy. I don't know. We didn't see it. We didn't see the email. We didn't see the tweet. We didn't. You just stop listening aggressively, and you can reduce complaints overnight. So she's like, no, the exact opposite, because she understands that negative feedback is where you learn, not only to make yourself better operationally, but again creates this whole content marketing petri dish. And so she instituted this program, lots of feedback from customers. They really nudge them all the time. Please let us know. Please let us know. Please let us know. She's great at the hug your haters approach, answers every customer and every channel every time in public, because customer service is a spectator sport. But she has this other program that's really great. So when somebody does leave a negative review, and for that business, it would typically be Yelp, TripAdvisor, Urban Spoon, those kind of places. Yep. So if they leave a 1-2-star review, she addresses it in public, as you should. We're terribly sorry. We're going to take your feedback and make ourselves better, etc. But then she waits a couple of hours, and then she contacts the hater on private, using a private messaging system that's usually part of those sites, and says, I've been thinking, and you are a particularly perceptive customer. You have a gift for this. You see things that other customers simply do not see. So what I would like to do, with your permission, of course, is send you 2 gift cards per month. And with each of those gift cards, I would like you to visit a different Lapon Quotidian location. And upon the conclusion of your visit, I would like you to click this link and fill out this detailed survey of your experience. And you're going to help us get better. And this totally works. She has like 150 of these secret shoppers working for her now. Total cost of this program, a few gift cards. She turned hate into help, which is really spectacular. Yeah. Now, I do not know, I should have asked her, but I did not, whether or not those surveys go to the content team. They totally should, of course, right? It would be a terrific group of sort of seed corn for them to think about. You sort of tie that data into that kind of marketing plus customer service equals customer experience loop. That's absolutely the way I would do it in practice.
Yeah, great story. And Jay, a lot of our conversation, we've talked about, using the call centers and things like that. And a lot of that people really associate with larger businesses. But what would you say to, say, a smaller business that doesn't have thousands of Facebook followers or thousands of followers on Twitter? How can a small business tap into that negative, whatever those negative comments are, and turn that into content?
I think sometimes for small businesses, depending on the type of business, it's not so much the social media side of it, or even the onstage component at all. It's the legacy offstage customer contact, whether it's phone or email or even face-to-face. What do customers tell you when you're talking to them in the real world? And so a lot of what that requires is to create a system inside your organization to collect customer feedback and then distribute it in the organization, even if that organization is very small. So, for example, if a customer comes up to the front counter and complains, in many cases, the person who is standing there will try to assist that customer. Maybe they need to get a manager involved, et cetera. But in almost no case, Rachel, does that get logged anywhere. Nobody then turns around and says, "Hey, we got to write this down." Right? So they take that customer scenario, they try to solve it, and then it's like poof, it's gone forever. How many small businesses record their phone calls and then transcribe them to look for customer patterns? None. How many small businesses take their emails, save them, then run them through a word cloud to see if there's patterns of customer complaint? None. Right? So and none of those things are complicated, and none of those things are terribly expensive. It's just saying, look, if we capture this and we look for patterns, we can learn a lot more than if we just treat every customer interaction as something we got to solve as quickly as possible and then forget about it.
Got it. Yep. Great answer. Well, Jay, this is a fascinating book. I cannot wait to to get my copy and to read through a lot of this research and a lot of these stories. Again, that website is hugyourhaters.com. And
It
can
is.
you tell us a little bit about some of the goodies that are available there?
Yeah, so every copy of the book actually has a poster included, which I'm really excited about. It's a poster called The Hatrix, which is the analysis of who complains and where they complain and what happens when you answer and what happens when you don't answer, broken down by channel. So the idea is that you pull The Hatrix out of your book and you can just put it in, put it on your office wall or on your desk and refer to it again and again. So I'm really excited about that component of the book. Mm-hmm. So people who buy multiple copies of the book get signed versions of The Hatrix. As mentioned, if you buy a few copies of the book, some for friends or your team, you get the amazing I Love Haters socks. People get a 45-minute call with me personally, one-on-one, to help you figure out your own customer service issues. People who buy a bunch of books, I'll do a webinar for your whole team or your whole company or your whole organization. So it's almost like a mini Kickstarter program over on hugyourhaters.com.
Great. And that's if they order through Hug Your Haters.
Yes,
correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, Jay, you've clearly been very busy for the last several months and will probably be very busy for the next few. What's next for you besides taking a well-deserved break, I hope?
No break.
Nope.
No break coming because we got to take this book on the road. So lots and lots of conferences talking about Hug Your Haters all around the world. So I'm really excited about that. The live presentation really, really resonates with audiences, which makes me really, really happy. Probably the next interesting thing that we're doing that you might appreciate, Rachel, is we are about a week away from launching a new podcast at Convert to Convert called Influence Pros. So it's going to be a podcast all about influencer marketing, which is really important for content marketers from an amplification standpoint. So it's a great show. We've already recorded a bunch of episodes. It's hosted by Heidi Sullivan from Cision and Todd Cameron from Tap Influence. And so we're really excited about that show. It's going to be a great one.
Great. And when's that coming out?
I think it launches on the 15th of February. Influence Pros.
All right. Real soon now.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, Jay, thank you again for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, well, we look forward to having you back for the next book.
I'll do it. I'll be there.
Thanks,
See
Jay.
you later. Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Many thanks again to my guest Jay Baer for joining us today to chat about Hug Your Haters. To learn more about the book and to pre-order your very own copy or copies, which will get you a ton of cool bonuses, I invite you to go to hugyourhaters.com. If you want to keep up with Jay on his book promotion journey, you can follow him on Twitter at @JayBaer. And if you have any questions or want to add to the conversation, I would love to hear from you. And the best way to reach me is through our website, resonancecontent.com. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. You know, Jay just shared a lot of great information and advice about dealing with people who leave negative feedback on our products and our services. And I think that extends very much so to our content. So, you know, when people leave negative comments on our blogs or on our shares on Facebook, we need to treat those folks the same way as Jay said we should treat those who have negative feedback about our products and services. So if someone leaves a comment on one of your blog posts, for example, telling you that they disagree with your ideas, don't ignore them. Treat that person with the same respect that Jay talks about. Respond to the comment as respectfully as you can and speak to the points that they raise. And really, I start a conversation around the points that they disagree with and see if you can clarify anything that might be a source of misunderstanding, always very respectfully and very politely. And remember Jay's rule of 2, maximum of 2 public responses. If the commenter wants to take the discussion further, I ask you to invite him or her to contact you directly via email or via another channel. Okay, campers, that is it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I want to say thanks again to our special guest, Jay Baer. If you like what you've heard today, please feel free to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or via our RSS feed. And if you really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review on iTunes. I would so appreciate it. Also, don't forget to grab your free copy of our latest ebook, Ninja Secrets of B2B Blogging, at b2bbloggingebook.com. And that's the numeral 2 in B2B. As always, I like to leave you with a quote, and today's comes from our special guest, Jay Baer. He once said, "What if, instead of trying to be amazing, you just focused on being useful? What if you decided to inform rather than promote?" Unquote. And that, to me, is what content marketing is all about. Again, this is Rachel Parker with Resonance Content Marketing. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you again next week. Take care.